Welcome to the Spatialedge AI Industry Insights Show. I'm your host, Pierre Leroux, and today with me we've got a very special guest, Prashant. So Prashant is an executive head of data science at Vodacom for the international markets, and previously was a principal product specialist and senior data scientist at Vodacom. So please allow me to welcome Prashant. Welcome.
Thanks, Pierre. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here to share some insights today. Looking forward to the conversation.
Fantastic. So Prashant, tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, what makes you you?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a technologist at heart. Always been inspired by what technology can achieve, in the world. So growing up with a really curious mind, that led me to, studying engineering at varsity. After that, progressed into the world of electronics engineering in industry. Spent some time on diagnostics and control system engineering, which led me into the world of IoT a bit there, right? And that was my journey into the data space. Getting into the world of IoT, getting my hands on a lot of telemetry data was my first step into the world of data. So that's my initial steps into the world of data. Thereafter, excited about what the world of AI can do for that type of data. So explored that space quite a bit in the railway space, and thereafter, transitioned into the telecommunication space. So in 2018, and ever since then, been delivering many personalization solutions for Vodacom, centered around leveraging machine learning, which drives our products and services. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Technologist at heart.
Technologist at heart. I love it. And kind of what made you want to go into the world of AI and that space? You mentioned you had some interaction with data early on, and then you started looking at transitioning. Was there like a pivotal moment, or was it just more of a gradual transition?
Sure. Yeah. I think it was a combination of both. In the early 2010s, the hype around artificial intelligence, had just come around. We've seen what Google released in terms of big data processing capability in Hadoop. A number of those factors, drove the hype around artificial intelligence, which caught my eye firstly. So definitely that was one of the key, reasons why I kind of became familiar with the space. Also, in my final year, took an elective course on artificial intelligence, having read up a bit around this. And yeah, I think a bit of foresight, seeing that, hey, all organizations are heading towards being data-driven. What's the next step after becoming data-driven? Moving from descriptive analytics to prescriptive analytics, which is all about, leveraging AI to its maximum, right?
No, it makes complete sense. Yeah, it's interesting. My journey, not as heavy data focused, but more development focused, and then also, yes, this is where the world's going to. How do I get involved? How do I participate? How do you help then carry the future of what AI could mean within South Africa? Which, is also fantastic, because you're 100% in the right place to be able to, look at what interesting things one can do to help an organization like that. Over time, you've progressed quite nicely. You at the point where you're essentially playing a lead role when it comes to data science and data scientists. So one of the interesting questions is, what's the difference for you being like a mid or a senior and more of a lead data scientist?
Sure. Yeah. I think as a data scientist, I would always say your first 5 years are about self-exploration, refining your technical skill set really well. After that, you progress into the world of, making sure you capitalize on those technical skills. Going beyond the data science domain, coupling it with technology, influencing the decisioning of your product owners, your technology managers, and to ensure that AI is at the core of, and data science is at the core of what the organization is doing. So you may pick up through that that as you transition from a junior to a senior, there's more accountability. Your areas of influence grow as a data scientist. And then once again, transitioning from the senior to the lead role is further expanding those areas of influence, right? Driving, knowledge shares with the various business units, ensuring, the commercial owners understand what data and AI can do for them in the areas, and making sure they endorse the space and, get benefit from it. So for me, as a lead, you have a far greater responsibility in the organization to ensure that the data and AI space is matured well enough, right? So
Yeah, so what you're saying sounds, if I were to summarize, it sounds a lot like in the beginning when you're doing more of a mid, more of a senior, you're still very much technically focused and focused. I mean, you're still technically focused right now, but technically in the sense of you've got isolated responsibilities on specific models, for example, whereas now your responsibility is a lot broader, a lot bigger, and also you're saying influencing a lot of people in the organization. So that would, for example, maybe be, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to assume it's like there's a different department, they've got specific things they want to do, they would come to you and you'd help facilitate the process, figure out kind of together what your team could help with, and be responsible for helping them get a machine learning model developed.
Yeah, spot on, right? And I think the way I look at it is always in the context of data and AI. They go hand in hand. Often the case, with a space like this that's always been in an emerging kind of phase, you have to, step out of your comfort zone, get into the faces of the commercial owners, help them understand how, the decision making around the products and services can be influenced and changed with, the data that we have curated on subscribers, with machine learning models which give you the predictive edge to actually drive, a lot of the key commercial KPIs, right? Yeah, and I think beyond that, it goes further, right? If we're able to influence a lot of these core products and services that our organization provides, you actually influence the lives of individuals in the country, right? It's about the greater purpose. So I think for me that even further emphasizes, how your areas of influence just continue to grow as you go from a junior to a senior data scientist and then a lead.
Does it involve also some educational aspects, like educating the business, getting them on board, like with ideas and things that I could contribute and bring to the table?
Spot on, right? I think the advocacy part is key to it. You have to be, like I mentioned, in the faces of the commercial owners. You have to push ideas towards them. Help be part of every step of a product, right? When they're deciding on how this product should touch customers, how it should be, positioned, what does the marketing look like, who do you market to? I think data and AI has a role to play in every step of delivering a product to a customer. So yes, definitely.
And how is it like transition from, I guess, being more focused on this is my project and here's the work I need to do, and now being more in front of other people and talking to them and organizing meetings and advocating, etc.?
Yeah, I love this question because, traditionally as data scientists, we love to be in our space, in one corner, in the detail of what we're doing, in the detail of the code. And it's very hard for us to, get ourselves out of that space to actually, hey, realize there's a lot of good stuff we're doing here. Let's take it out there and get people to have visibility of what we're doing. So definitely, it is a major transition. It's something that I encourage, my juniors and seniors to, continuously develop themselves in not only being great at the work they do technically, but advocating the work they do, right?
No, 100%. To me, it makes a lot of sense. Like at the end of the day, you have to get, depending on the systems that you're building, sometimes the systems more for internal people in an organization. So you're going to be building a tool for them. So they need to be brought into it and know how to use the tool, or it's something that gets slotted in as part of their process. Let's say, for example, a marketing model of some sort that does improvements on email campaigns or whatever it may be. Whatever the case is, whoever runs those campaigns, for example, they need to be aware of what this thing is and how it's going to be affecting their lives. And obviously, they're responsible for results at the end of the day. So they're not just going to accept anything. They obviously want to get some results from this and not have it mess up anything that they would have gotten otherwise. So no, I completely get it, and getting them to buy in. It's not an easy job. On that, what are some of your top project wins to date?
Yeah, my biggest win at Vodacom so far is being key to some of the building of some of the recommendation engine systems. Which drives hyper personalization at Vodacom. So, from the tech to the data science models, to the workflows, end to end, influence on, recommendation engines which drive hyper personalization at Vodacom, is probably what I'm most proud about today. And having seen the influence it had on, some of our products and services, for me, that's gives me, great satisfaction. And I think that for me, the perpetual benefit that we've seen from it, since the program began many years ago, is what, truly stands out.
Yeah. So just to be clear, like a recommendation engine, meaning it recommends something for a specific customer or for specific action, and you can use it for so many different things. Some people use it on the website itself, like when you go on a website and then it recommends a product for you. Some do it in email marketing, etc. So obviously there's a lot of application to it, and there's probably a lot of applications that this has been used for as well. It's not just one. I'm assuming it's not just one. There's multiple things forming part of a bigger system.
Yeah,
it's actually more what I'm saying.
Spot on, right? So I think, like you mentioned, a recommendation engine is something diverse in terms of how many different things that you can leverage it for in your organization. So we primarily leverage it for predicting what sort of offerings customers should be getting, helping them get the best offers at the best prices so that they get the best amount of value and benefit from the telecom organization, right?
Which is massive value add.
Massive, right?
And what I love is obviously it's also well suited for the telecommunications organization. Some industries it's a bit different, but in this industry it's very well suited. Okay, but that's a fantastic piece of technology and a fantastic system to be working on and digging into. I don't know if you've had specific challenges in this area, but one of the things I'd love to know is, like, are there some challenges that you did face the past year? And then, if there were, like, how was the challenge resolved? What lessons did you learn from those experiences that you could share?
Sure, yeah. I think the key challenge, right? Telecoms is a really fast-paced environment. So business is always moving at 100 miles an hour. And us as the data science big data team, it's a lot of exploration, a lot of us being in the detail, finding a way to, synergize the speed at which, business moves and which data science is able to deliver and actually, influence the products and services, right? So that's one of the key challenges you'd find, in many fast-paced organizations. And key to that is, designing out, great processes where, as I mentioned, where we deeply integrated into the workflows of the business. So data science is not an afterthought, right? AI is not an afterthought, right? It's actually part and parcel of the day-to-day planning and decision-making for the commercial teams. So I think that for me is one of the key challenges that stood out, and was the switch between us being providing limited value add and a lot of value add.
A lot more. So it's the friction, or is it the speed of business and data science is able to deliver and being more integrated within the processes. So it's the friction that there is within that. Is that then, so how did you get to solve that? Or what process are you guys on solving that or improving it?
Yeah, I think,
I don't know if it can ever be completely solved.
I think it's a combination of elements, right? Some sit on the business side, and like I mentioned, entrenching ourselves in the business. So having our data scientists sit as part of the business teams, develop deep domain knowledge, so that they're more, proactive in terms of their decision making around what they're doing, what they're implementing from a data science perspective, what models they choose, whether they go for something simple and naive to get the product off the ground, or do they spend time on, getting the best model metrics out before getting this model into production, right? So that's one of the elements. On the technology side, is it was all about, refining our approach to productionizing machine learning models, developing sound machine learning pipelines leveraging, good software engineering practices, right? And I think that's where Edge has been key to supporting us, right? I've loved the support that we've had, and it's also been amazing to see some of the ML engineers, who joined me on the journey back in 2018 grow into, leads today. So it's been, a number of factors, I think, that influences that space.
I've always thought a lot about like how what does that translate to? Because you mentioned embedding data scientists within the different areas. You mentioned picking the right tools and technologies. You mentioned, the software development practices and engineering, and all these factors. And the result for me always is one, the business user or the people in the business can trust it. And it's that level of trust you build up over time because they can see it, they get used to it, they understand it a little bit better, and they also see the results and they see that almost they don't get to a point of mistrusting it. Or if they do start mistrusting it, then you quickly rectify it and then get the trust back. But so all these steps and things then makes it easy for business to buy in and be like, okay, we understand, and we're going to make more and more use of this service or this team collection of teams within the business.
I think trust is key. Also what you would notice in the space is once you show just a little bit of value, your commercial owners would want 10 times more, right? So being ready for that is key as well. And I think that, it goes back to the advocacy, right? And
Yes.
and the education that you need to drive through the organization to ensure, data and AI is well leveraged, right? Because we could be spending loads of time, loads of money investing year on year on, really good data and AI technology stacks, building great models, but if they're not integrated to your products and services, you don't actually get the return on investment, right? So
one of the things actually I was thinking of now is, I mean, you can see how you want to answer this question. If you want to know it, that's also fine. How mature would you say? Do you feel like you guys are like very mature right now, or in between, or like what level of maturity would you say over time, like we say today, that you have reached?
yeah, I think we at a good level of maturity given that we've, initially had an on-prem environment, which we matured substantially in the past, and then transitioned into the cloud environment. So we have an AI stack running in, on-prem and in cloud. That's helped us, understand the benefits of cloud versus on-prem kind of, development. Our stacks deliver a number of use cases today and influence a number of products. It's not, sub 10. So I always say when you're less than 10 use cases in production, you're at, still really infancy type of level. Beyond that, all the operations support and monitoring aspects that are required as part of the stack, kind of catch up with you. So we've also transitioned past that and stabilized. So happy to say, we're at a good level of maturity, but given the curveball that generative AI has thrown us now in the most recent year, we've got our work cut out to make sure that we, integrate, the shiny new technology into our stack, right?
Maybe this is more of a personal opinion, but hybrid versus cloud versus on-prem, where you at in terms of that conversation? Because you actually have the experience now of quite a few different elements there.
Yeah, I think the experience really tells me that, hey, it's highly dependent on the organization, right? What does your team sizes look like? What do your budgets look like? Where are you in your journey in terms of data and AI, right? If you're looking to move fast with a small team, you need to leverage your cloud environment. If you running at scale and looking for cost optimizations, there's aspects that I would say, you can sweat assets on premise for, because that becomes, one of the key factors, cost, right? When you're at scale. So, so I'm all for the hybrid approach, because I think, there's benefits in both, cloud and on-prem, especially purely from a cost perspective. I think, the more you think about it beyond the cost is data security, right? There's parts of your data that you might want to not expose into the cloud environment, or regulation in your country might not allow you to expose into the cloud environments. And that's where you need to be, adaptive in terms of still leveraging on-premise environments and many open source solutions in that case, right?
I completely agree. So for me, it's also the like you spot on. Actually, this is my experience as well. I just wanted to like find out what your experience was, but it is cloud gives you an environment to be experimental in some way or form, and it gives you the access to a lot of tools quite quickly. Reasonably quickly, depending on the cloud you're talking about, and depending on some settings, but reasonably quickly versus doing the investment of on-prem system plus the costs, ongoing costs and concerns of an on-prem system. But you're right. Like at some point, it's like let's say you're running you're streaming terabytes of data. You have multiple models. You're running I don't know how many GPUs. It's going to get very expensive very quickly at this operational cost. Then it's like, but hold on. If we just bought the equipment, now the on-prem system makes sense from cost perspective. 100% also regulation. 100% on PII data you'd want to keep in country. You want to keep it within the laws. You want to keep it under protection, and all of that as well as far as you possibly can and should. And then obviously anonymize, etc. So I'm also for the hybrid approach, and a lot of technologies also lends itself to making it a lot easier to do both. For example, if you got a Kubernetes engine on-prem, if you got a Kubernetes engine in the cloud, and you're running everything with
Cloud native.
Well, it's Kubernetes images, actually, so Docker images. That's what I was going for. But if you run everything, then the portability does become easier if you did want to move between the two. But essentially, at the end of the day, certain things like a recommendation system is core to a business. So it makes sense to invest properly and do it properly. But sometimes you want to do something experimental. Start in the cloud, eventually move to on-prem as it matures and makes sense for your business. I completely agree. Like we spoke a bit about now different challenges. We went down a curveball. Is there anything else you want to mention in terms of challenges and lessons you might have learned this year that you want to mention?
We've mentioned the challenges around integrating well into business. I think the other challenge that presents itself is the evolving world of the data scientist, right? We've seen how a traditional data analyst becomes a traditional data scientist. The world of the data scientist has been quite, what can I say, clear in terms of what skills you need over the last 5 years. With the world of Gen AI now coming through, it requires the data scientist, once again, to adapt, right? So given that, I think one of the key challenges that presents itself for anyone in the space as a data scientist is to continuously evolve, right? A way I see us transitioning as data scientists is into the world of an AI engineer, right? Being well-versed in tech, data science, data analytics, and broader than that, right? So for me, it's all about the evolution of the data scientist into the world of a data AI engineer, and myself as a lead, ensuring I'm able to provide, the necessary training, resources for my team to actually grow on that path, right? Be exposed to the world of Gen AI, understand it quite deeply and adequately, so that it becomes another tool in the toolbox, right?
Is the AI engineer more generalist?
Yes.
So, or in some way, like you've got more skills. Like you mentioned, like like a broader set of skills rather than narrow focus. Is that kind of
100%? For me, the AI engineer is someone who's kind of like a full stack data scientist.
Okay.
As you would have a full stack software engineer.
Yes.
A broader set of skills, able to fit themselves in many different scenarios, as opposed to a very narrow set of skills where you might be, for example, if we take, for example, someone who's just expert at training and deep learning models, or expert in natural language processing, right? So an AI engineer would be someone a bit broader than that, with the skill of a data scientist, data engineer, ML engineer, and a data analyst, right? So it's almost the unicorn.
That sounds like a unicorn, but I'm almost curious, like, is there certain trends that you see that makes this, I guess, useful in that sense?
Yeah, I think what we have seen is having data scientists, like I mentioned, limited to one domain, prevents how much they can influence
for that business,
right? And similarly, we've seen the same in the technology space. Limiting their skill set also prevents the areas of influence in the technology domain, as opposed to how I explained it in the business domain. So for me, to get the most out of the team, get the most out of, the resources that we have, is to ensure that they're all, well versed in the different areas that we need them to have a bigger impact. Because I think we've seen what's actually happening out there trend wise with the biggest of biggest organizations in the world. They've been cutting down on some of the AI teams, being a bit more razor focus on research. So it's almost like the hype has now like kind of peaked. People are looking at, okay, how do we adequately manage investment and get the most out of investment in the space for the next 5 to 10 years, right? And a lot of it is centered around getting your AI engineer really skilled up, right?
100%. That was interesting. I need to do a little bit of research also around this the AI engineering concept. But it's interesting area where it's going to. So on to one of the other questions was around, it's touched on the advocacy part, but specifically getting buy-in for projects in the organization. Now, I think we did touch on it a little bit, but this week you talk about that again. Is there a specific methodology you follow or way you approach it to get buy-in on projects in the organization?
Yeah, I think for me, it's all about the product owners and the commercial owners. Like I mentioned, educating them.
Sorry, for clarity, the product owner is somebody inside the organization, like in a business, that this is going to benefit them, or is it somebody specifically driving the success of a
product and service?
Product service, like
yeah, spot on, right? So for me, it all starts with the product and commercial owners, right, who are driving their products and services, educating them. Number two, us driving a lot of experiments to show the value, and adequately measure that value in metrics that are easily interpretable by the product and commercial owners, right? And thereafter, transitioning from the experimental phase very quickly into a phase of scale where you've shown on a small subsegment of your customers some machine learning model, how it influences an outcome. You want to transition very quickly into doing that for the full subscriber base, right? So in terms of getting buy-in, it's all about getting these experiments out there, getting the commercial owners buy-in to drive these experiments on their product and service, and then scaling out very quickly, right? Showing value, measuring value on a continuous basis, I think is key to buy-in, right?
Maybe, okay, so let's on the use cases one, the ones sometimes on your top wins to date. Are there any other use cases you would say you're also proud of, and why?
Yeah, I think more on the big data side, in terms of leveraging big data processing.
When we talk big data, I mean, this is actually big data, because it's not just like some people think big data is like just like a little bit of like a few hundred gigs. It's a lot of data.
Loads of terabytes of data,
right?
Of data. Especially in the telecommunications space, there's loads of telemetry data floating around, either of your network probes, either coming through from your transactional systems, your billing systems, bringing that all together, to understand customer behavior, drive customer segmentation, which once again, then drives insights for your business owners, helping them understand what's going on in terms of their products and services, which once again translates into the decisions they make around that, right? Us curating what we called our enterprise feature store is one of the other projects that I'm really, proud of. Something that's, key to all our recommendation engine systems, right? So the customer profiles that drive that is delivered from our enterprise feature store. And that for me was a major big data engineering effort to actually put that together. I think what was actually quite cool when open source tools like Feast came around, many of you might know Feast, we actually realized, we were quite a few steps ahead, right? And still today, I still think, in terms of what we have, we are still ahead in terms of our feature store, driving value, not only for machine learning, but then beyond that, right? for a lot of our marketing activities as a centralized customer profile.
I wanted to mention something there where something like that would come along and like you're saying, we're way ahead of what that platform's capable of and what they can provide. But also some of these things are not built for the kind of enterprise that works at the scale that you guys operate at. So, for example, a lot of it would be built for smaller, less data, different kinds of situations where it is really requires significant levels of engineering to get and make use of it. I mean, I think we're talking about a lot of data, but just to be contextual about it, for me, it's like every single, like when you say telemetry data, what goes through my mind is every single thing I do on the phone that gets communicated with the tower is telemetry data, every single thing. I'm one person. Now there's tens of millions of us running around between different towers doing things all the time. Whatever it is we're busy with on our phones, we're doing things. And which is in some way, some of it obviously being recorded in different ways and means. Now, that's extreme amount of behavioral data that can be used to, like you said, customer segmentation. It's very rich in the applications one can build from that and use for that, but it's voluminous, it's massive, it's a lot, and it's really real. So people talk real time, it's like now real time and just now real time, like it's really real time, like it's there, it's happening right now, and you can do something about it. Or obviously you can also aggregate it and build services and products around that at a different stage. But in terms of an organization, like a lot of companies do not have that kind of access, like only your bigger corporations, so telecommunication companies, banking, for example, obviously transactional data, retailers on product data and purchasing data. But then when you think of healthcare, it starts to get a little bit less, unless you've got like a device tracking you that Discovery has access to. It would be when did you go see the doctor, which is once every I don't know how long, or like it's different. It gets a bit more difficult. But in this space, it's a lot. It's there, and you can build such rich applications from it.
Sure, yeah, and I think for me that's one of the privileges, having access to lots and lots of data. With that great power comes great responsibility as well. I think in terms of data management, and that's where the world of big data comes in. Being really good at managing this big data in a responsible manner, and then having the ability to process this data and get value out of it.
Yes. Yes.
And like you mentioned, it is an engineering discipline, right? It's not just data engineering alone, right? A whole bunch of other engineering kind of factors come into play. Your systems engineering discipline is key to planning how you go about this and doing it in a sustainable way, right? I know we've had lots of advocates from spatial driving that type of thinking.
It's fundamental to everything you want to do. So that's why we like. It's an important aspect of getting these AI solutions off the ground and on the table. So what's your view on the modern AI stack?
For me, the modern AI stack is going to be highly influenced by the value that generative AI can provide. So what we have been doing is looking at how do we expand our current AI stack into the world of Gen AI. So I think some of the key things, around we've gotten down and bedded down how we productionize machine learning models. We've centralized our feature stores, which influence that. We've built great, metrics capturing functionality to capture, metrics on data quality, training metrics, model metrics, performance of, the models in production, building APIs to expose your predictions in a seamless manner, schedule and orchestrate pipelines and monitor these pipelines at scale. That stack there now has to be, kind of fitted to the world of generative AI. And I think the major curveball being, with large language models is that, the size they are, the compute power they take to actually, execute. But what we're seeing as a trend, right now is the world is moving towards how do you get these large language models to be cost effective in terms of, usage on traditional CPUs, as opposed to just requiring GPU execution, which is costly, right? And then I think, the major thing around large language models is the stochastic nature of them. So, focusing on building a lot of these guardrails, which, allows us to bed the responses of language models in truth, and at the same time, prevent any crazy responses to our customers if we actually have to, have customer-facing outputs from our large language models, right? So I think it is a major game changer, Gen AI, for the AI, the modern AI stack. And the modern AI stack is going to be all about, what can I say, enhancing your current AI stack to actually suit Gen AI use cases, right? Because
Yes.
I think for me, the key reason why this is the case is, personally, I feel like there was a bit of a winter in terms of machine learning and what the applications it suited, and from a practical perspective, every organization across every industry figured out where the value truly was and what type of use cases they could practically deliver. But once again, large language models have just blown the waters open, right? It's almost like, in my opinion, made every vertical across our business think about, how can they leverage off this new shining technology, right? That's out there.
And that is fantastic. And the three things I want to highlight, which you mentioned, which is 100% stochastic nature. So you don't actually necessarily know what's going to come next. Although, obviously it's trying to make up the best possible next few words, next sentences, next structure, but it could just imagine something, or you could trick it into saying something which you don't necessarily want it to say. So the guardrails for me, 100% is going to be an interesting one, especially if it's like a customer chatbot. And it's already been that one case with one airline where it made a promise that it will, I think the guy had to follow a few steps and he'll get a refund. And it's like, no, it's not. And then I think the lawsuit ended up in saying, well, being the fact that the customer bot is a representative of the company, you have to honor what it's saying. I'm like, oh crap. But if you have those guardrails in place, it is a much better, obviously, an understanding what the person wants. So it is a much better, I'm going to call it menu system or interface to interact with, especially when you want to give voice commands. I'm still irritated Siri doesn't have LLMs behind it yet. But if you want to give voice commands to get an action done or get information back, it is actually very powerful, especially if it doesn't just make, let's say it doesn't make it up, but it's able to understand what you're saying, able to do the research or use the pool of knowledge, which is also where it's progressing to, is a pool of knowledge that it can extract information from and then summarize it and make sure, and then there's ways of it double checking itself in terms of accuracy with what it's summarizing. So then you get the right response in a very human manner, with exactly what you were looking, not exactly, but very hopefully exactly what you were looking for. And then it's like, okay, now we're
at
in
the right cost as well.
Well, okay, and it must just not be too expensive. I agree with you in terms of getting it sorted. But that is fascinating, and that is exciting things to be working with, especially again within an organization that you are, with the kinds of use cases you could potentially be looking at.
Yeah.
No, that would make me also extremely excited, and especially with these things moving forward. So I guess we'll move on to the last question. We were talking about the AI stack. We're talking about integrating Gen AI and LLM. I guess the obvious question there would be, are there specific use cases that interest you very much in terms of what this could be used for?
Yeah. So for me, one of the major things that many big organizations do is we get a lot of feedback through surveys and a lot of our interactive channels on our products and services, and a lot of this is unstructured, right? And typically what you'd have, in the customer service or customer experience space is people, a human in the loop, going through like loads of these different unstructured responses, trying to understand, what is the customer actually speaking about? What are the pain points? What are some of the, the keywords that jump out there, right? And what large language models have done is actually given you a way of actually, automating all of that, right? Instead of going through a sample of surveys, a sample of feedback, a sample of information that sits in your database around customer behavior, you can actually process all of it and get much more accurate insights as to what are some of the pain points around your products and services. And that's all centered around, data extraction, right? So for me, data extraction is one of the low-hanging fruits for large language models, and turning organizations' data extraction from like good, but to like
Really,
really good, right? That's one of the areas that I think it's really useful in the short term. I think I'm a true believer in what it can provide, and I'm looking forward to the day where we expose it, where we can expose many of them to our customers. And like I mentioned, those guardrails are key to that. So having those guardrails in place, which ensures we respond in a responsible manner, would help us respond to our customers in a much quicker manner, right? Coupling that with a lot of the historical work as well that's been done. We speak about grounding LLMs in truth, but where does that truth come from? Like I mentioned earlier in the session, where I spoke about the enterprise feature store, which curates a 360 view of our customer, right? And your LLM benefiting of something like that allows it to ground itself in the truth of the customer and the most recent behaviors of the customer, making it really good at taking context of what the customer has been doing and interacting with, and why they're potentially calling into the call center, or why they're chatting to us on their chatbot, right? And then I think beyond that, like I've mentioned, I'm loving the trends of how fast the community around Gen AI is moving, right? They're moving at the speed of light, I would say, right? Every month there's a new model that's at the top of the open source leaderboard, closing in on GPT-4 across the various metrics. But like you mentioned, you would love to have Siri powered by LLMs, right? We've seen that being prototyped today, where people are training, expert models, which are really these domain expert models, fine-tuned on specific domains, bringing together a multitude of experts and being able to deploy these things on our mobile phones, right? So it's incredible how far the industry has moved on in a year, right? Where a year ago, everyone was chatting about, Falcon and Llama. We now have 20 different experts to choose from at this point in time. So yeah, that for me is definitely how I'd summarize the Gen AI space, and
fantastic.
Where I see it.
I almost know, just to take what you said, it's like in customer service, obviously the frustration is you've got a problem or pain point as a customer. You want to get it solved as quickly as possible. Now you're submitting surveys, things like that. And obviously, if there's a lot of it coming in volume, it's hard for somebody just to figure out what is actually happening, what's the real pain. Do we have a problem somewhere that needs to be fixed? But now if it's automated, if it's a system that can understand, or first probably group together, obviously similar surveys, understand what the problem is, summarize it, isolate it, help this person then resolve it, or actually be able to immediately respond to that person. Tell them, listen, we know the tower in Cape Town is down. We're on our way. We're fixing it. That kind of interaction obviously really gives you a much better customer service. No, it's fantastic. Okay. With that, let me say thank you so much. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for this interview. I hope there will be a second one in the near future. But I really appreciate you coming through and having this conversation with us.
Thanks, Pierre. Really enjoyed the conversation. Looking forward to the next one, and happy to share further insights in the future.